Fans and through and through. Oh, the Toon Review. Laughs and passion, football too. We are the Toon Review. By the fans, for the fans, through and through. Laughs and passion, football too. We are the Toon Review. 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 Go!
Good evening, folks. Welcome to the Toon Review for tonight's show, which is, of course, the Burnley versus Newcastle preview with myself, Paul. I am flying solo. Unfortunately, Billy is still waiting for the nurses to come round to sort him out. Alex, of course, is in Poland. Thought he might be on tonight, but he may be having internet issues, of course. And Lady Sam, a lot of you have been asking for an update on Lady Sam and how she is. I've just spoke to her before the show there. She ain't still doing too well, guys. She's very, very poorly right now. Ruined Christmas, and she's feeling pretty down about things at the minute. But hopefully, fingers crossed, she will get herself on the road to recovery with plenty rest and recuperation, and she'll be back on the channel fighting fit very, very soon. If you do enjoy the show tonight, as usual, hit the like button and, of course, subscribe to the Toon Review if you are new. Memberships are available by hitting the join button just underneath myself. And, of course, super chats are still available, which is the $ underneath the live chat, and that will guarantee your comment to be read out on the show. Now, obviously, I did a video earlier on today regarding Eddie Howe and some of the thoughts that he had ahead of the Burnley game. Now, look, I said in the video, these press conferences that are sort of half and half, I don't see the point of them. If I'm being openly honest, I just don't see the point. What is the point of talking to Eddie Howe about the Burnley game when it's still very, very raw what's just happened at Old Trafford? It's stupid and pointless. And you don't really get the information that you really want from the manager. Then again, we've seen many, many times in the past that Eddie kind of deflects the questions. Some of the questions that I've been really impressed with are the ones that the Geordie journos ask. They ask the questions that the fans want to know. And I think that they should be applauded for that. But the problem is Eddie just bounces them off. He doesn't really give them a straight answer. And look, he doesn't have to. Nobody's saying that he has to do that. He doesn't have to give anybody a straight answer. But it would be nice for us as fans to maybe hear a bit more from the manager and about what his thoughts are, because sometimes what he's coming out with at the minute, it makes pretty much no sense. And, as I said in the video earlier, I don't get where he thinks that we've been getting better for 7 or 8 games, excluding the Sunderland game. I think there's many other games have to be excluded from that, because the only one that I really saw was worth talking about was the Everton game. And I'm talking about specifically the Premier League here, not anything to do with Europe or any cup games or anything like that. The Premier League, the form in the Premier League hasn't been there. And I don't understand where the manager's coming from when he says the performances have been getting better. And then he talks about the intensity, which we know has been a big, big problem of late. We saw it for 45 minutes against Chelsea, which is what everybody saw. The manager saw it as well. But it was only for 45 minutes. And then, again, the one that really pisses me off is when he turns around and says, we can't get on the training pitch. We've got a game every 2 to 3 days. It's a moot point for me, because if you look at the other top teams and the top teams in the Premier League in England who are in European competitions every single season, they have to put up with that. They know before they go into the season that they are going to be playing a lot of football. And it's like Eddie's kind of not realised that he's playing 2 to 3 games every week, and he's using it now. We're coming into 2026, and he's still using it as an excuse as to why the intensity's not there, because we're playing every 2 to 3 games. Now, I'm very sorry, but look at Villa. I know they're not in the Champions League, but they're in Europe, okay? And they are playing superbly well at the minute. Yes, they had a bit of a slow start, but God almighty, has Emery got those guys going, and they're playing 2 to 3 games a week. It seems like an excuse that is just starting to now die away, and he's kind of pinning himself into a corner I don't know. So something's just not right, and the intensity's not there. If we'd played with intensity against Manchester United, we would have won that game and won that game well. You know, the team that Manchester United put out on Friday night was not a team that could have coped with our intensity. But again, he doesn't send them out in the right way. And Mike, you make a good point in the comments. They play on a Thursday as well because they've got the UEFA League. So it's way different. You know, Villa are playing on a Thursday. So, you know, many people said that's the horrible thing. But never mind. Agent Texas, I'm out of sync. I don't think I am, mate. I'm looking at YouTube now. I think I'm perfectly in sync, so that might be something to do with you, buddy. Nobody else has commented on that, quite honestly. Stacey, a member for 4 months on the channel. Good evening, everyone. Hope Billy and Sam are feeling better soon. Billy's okay. He just has to have the nurses around every so often to see to his legs where he's got infections, and unfortunately they still haven't been today. They don't really give him a time slot. They just say we'll be round on that day, and it can be any time. So unfortunately Billy's sort of strapped for time, if you like, when it comes to that. But you're highlighting the negatives, says Al Hughes. Well, I'll name me some positives, mate, and I'll go through them with you. You know, this is the thing. If you're gonna have a go at me for being negative, come back and tell me what I should be positive about. You know, you can't just make a comment like that and then just say, I'm focusing on the negatives, because where are the positives? You know, we're playing, we've just lost to literally a third string Man United side. We lost to Sunderland. It's ridiculous. So, you know, name me the positives. Lewis Hall is definitely one, right? Yes, Lewis Hall, he's on fire at the minute. No doubt about it. He is on fire, and it's something that, you know, we know what kind of player he is. And Lewis Hall is the best thing going for us right now. Probably our best player, without a shadow of a doubt, our best player. Andrews is highlighting negatives. So let's all sit down and chat sunshine and rainbows. Yeah, it's not sunshine and rainbows at all. I'll try and stick to the facts, as Antacid says there. I don't know any Newcastle United fan, all right, who wants to be negative. We all want to be positive. We all want to think, yeah, get in. We're playing some great stuff. We're moving up the league. We're having a real good go at everything. I'd love to sit here and say that. Nothing more than praising the lads every game and praising Eddie for fantastic performances. That's all I want to see. And I'm going to be blunt and say, well, I'm sorry, but let's be honest. The football that we've seen since the cup final has not been great. There's a lot of Newcastle United fans who say that they have not enjoyed the football that they've been watching. Me as well. I can't say that I've enjoyed a lot of it. So, you know, and look, I'm not going to go into the happy clapper debate because everybody's got their opinion, okay? It's all about backing your opinions up, though. Like, if you're going to come at me for being negative, etc., and no positivity, then that's fine. But at least come back at me and say why. Where's the positives? You name some, and we'll talk about them. You know, Lewis Hall, definitely a positive. But right now, as we sit and do the show tonight before the game tomorrow, there's not a lot of positives there. There is positives that we're in the semi-final of the Carabao Cup. There's positives that we're still involved in the Champions League, and we have a real good chance of qualification into the knockout stages. They are positives. But as Eddie has said many, many times, the Premier League is our bread and butter. And if you are to get where the CEO wants to get us, we've got to be better. We've got to be up there. We've got to be in Europe. We've got to be, you know, consistently there, consistently bringing in the revenue, and consistently being there to bring in the better players. Because if we're not in the Champions League next season, then I'm sorry, you don't get the same caliber of player. You will not, because all the players these days, as everyone knows, want to be involved in the Champions League or a European competition. And right now, we're nowhere near that, guys. We're nowhere near that. John says Alanga is holding the lads. Oh, sorry, Eddie is holding the lads back. And Kieran says, I would love to see Eddie Howe start the match with a 4-4-2 and end the match with a 4-2-3-1 for a change. Kieran, so would I, but I think we all know that's probably not going to happen. Botman is still out injured. Trippier is still out injured. We are just putting together, sort of makeshift defenders. But look, Shea, he is a veteran, but we're asking too much of him right now. Fabian Schär at the start of this season was not going to be what anyone thinks was not going to be intended to be a first on the team sheet centre back. I think especially once Chow came into things, Chow and Botman were Eddie's two main centre backs moving forward. You can bring Dan Burn into that a little bit, pulling them away from left back, of course. And I'm sure that the back four that we all want to see is Livramento, Chow, Botman, and Lewis Hall. We're not going to see that for a while because I haven't an absolute Scooby-Doo what's going on with Sven Botman. You listen to the manager 6 weeks ago now, turning around and saying he's getting an injection. It takes a week to take hold, and then he'll be back. Now he doesn't have a comeback date. And this is what I mean. It's just all very, very confusing. But as for tomorrow, look, we beat Burnley a couple of weeks ago at St. James's Park, and we beat them just. It wasn't a great performance. Again, we were 2-0 up in the game. We go into injury time. Suddenly, Jacob Ramsey wants to play basketball, gives a penalty away, and then Fabian Schär gives a needless free kick away just on the halfway line, which Dubravka pumps into the box. And I still don't know to this day how no Burnley player got the head on that to equalise. So we could have dropped 2 points there. Yes, we didn't. And we got the 3, which was the main thing. And it's all for me now. This is a must-win game tomorrow. 100% a must-win game. And I put it in the thumbnail for Matchday Live because I believe it is a must-win. If anyone comes out and says, I take a draw, then I'm sorry. But where is your ambition? Where is the ambition? We have to believe what PIF and David Hopkinson are telling us about they still want us to be number one. Well, I'm sorry, but that needs to go to the fans as well. You need to have that ambition. And if you're thinking you'll take a point from Burnley tomorrow, then there's just no ambition there. This is a must-win game. Burnley haven't won in 5. They are second off bottom in the league. We're not playing very well away from home. For me, this is a real opportunity now over the next 2 or 3 games to get some points on the board and start getting performances in as well. But it starts tomorrow. Burnley is massive. If we lose to Burnley tomorrow, then I don't know where we go. I don't know where we go with the manager. I don't know whether fans will finally turn. I mean, what was it? 56% yesterday on the poll that we did wanted Eddie out. Only 20-odd% in. The rest were on the fence. That tells a story because more and more fans are now, he's losing support. And it's not just what happens on the pitch, it's what he says off the pitch as well, for me, is why I think that everything is just a massive struggle right now. Because he's saying things that aren't happening on the pitch. So Tom's saying there, the 12 points is what we really need to go for. And you know what? The next 4 games, 12 points, it'll be fantastic. But can you honestly see us winning 4 games on the trot the way we're playing right now? Because Crystal Palace ain't going to be an easy game. And you know what? We all know what happens when we go to teams who are absolute dog this season, and that's Wolves at Molineux. 2 points they've got this season. They are absolutely dreadful. One of the worst teams ever. And that's saying something in the Premier League, by the way. And today I'm seeing reports that they are thinking about sacking their new manager already because he just hasn't turned it around as well as everybody thought they would. Newcastle go to these places and, yeah, you all know what generally happens. And it's scary. So I think they need to win the game tomorrow, and we need to give the performance needs to be there as well. Not just scraping a win. We have to see a performance because we're against a very, very poor Burnley side. I don't mean any disrespect to them, but the second off bottom, which indicates that they're not a good side. And the fact that they haven't won a game in 5. They've drawn the last 2, and that might give them a bit of confidence going into the game. but it's a must-win game for me. It simply has to be. Let's get a couple more super chats. There we are. Spike says, my team would be 4-2-3-1. Pope, Hall, Chow, Miley, Sandro, Bruno, Gordon, Big Nick, Voltamada, Barnes, and Wisser. Look, I mean, we can see it. This is the annoying thing for me, right? Is we can see this, and we can see a 4-2-3-1. We as fans would love to see that with Big Nick just behind Wisser. It doesn't have to be a direct 4-2-3-1. He can, switch it into a 4-4-2 at times and things like that. But play them both. We're desperate for a result. And he keeps on talking about playing these players in a desperate situation. We need points. We need goals. We need performances. And he did say that Wisser is still, by the way, this'll upset a lot of people, that he's still nowhere near playing a full 90 minutes, apparently. Now, for me, that's extremely worrying. The fact that he played 70-odd minutes against Chelsea and he's had time on the pitch, yet he's still not match fit to play 90 minutes, that worries me a little bit. Chippers, people talk about the positives. We still have to play 5 of the so-called big 6 away from home yet, so there is 5 more defeats on current form. I don't think people realise that and haven't probably looked too far into the future, to be fair, but we do have to go to all the big guns in the Premier League, and that is going to be difficult. Going to Etihad. I mean, we've got them in the Carabao Cup as well. Does anybody really feel 100% confident now that we are going to do Man City over 2 legs, especially with the first leg at home? That is going to be an incredibly difficult football match. So, I don't know. Magpie 50 says, Paul, your thoughts on fan reaction if we lose? I must say I'm not too positive. Also, a big get well soon to Queen Sam. Thank you, mate. The fans, look, a lot of people have I think Chris from Evermore did a very good video yesterday talking about the split between the fan base, certainly about the manager and maybe the way we play, maybe the players that are available, etc. And I really enjoyed that video because it came across very well talking about the split in the fans. You're not really allowed to have a say, because if you say something negative against Eddie Howe, there's people jump on you. If you say positives about Eddie Howe, then the people that want Eddie Howe out will then jump on you. Nobody seems to be able to have a decent communication when they are in or out. They can't discuss it like adults, if you like. They can't talk about. They have to abuse people, and that's why social media is a huge cesspit right now, because you can't have that. You can't have a decent conversation with anybody like you would face to face. Like in the pub in the corner, just talking amongst yourselves about the pros and cons for Eddie Howe. You're not allowed to do that on social media. John says his head is on Bournemouth going down after 5 years. I mean, we've all seen the clip. We've all seen the clip of Eddie Howe talking. It was like copy and paste. I kind of think on that Bournemouth one, he knew he was coming to the end, and that's you just get the feeling the way he's talking that he's not really confident in his own words. Tomorrow is massive, and he has to set the lads out the right way, because I genuinely believe that there's players within that squad, within the first 11, who are not happy right now. You can tell by the body language, the facial expressions. The thing is, you look at Toon Army, who was completely fallen off a cliff. Now, Toon Army's given an interview on, I don't know where it was, but I picked up a couple of points from it, and he's really praising Eddie Howe, which obviously he's not going to say anything against the manager in an interview. It doesn't work like that. But he was saying that he's loved working with Eddie Howe, and maybe hopes to work with him in the future. And I'm thinking, work with him in the future. Does that mean at Newcastle? Does that mean somewhere else? You don't know. Sky Italia, thank you. I knew it was somewhere like that. It was a very interesting interview, but he does not look like a happy camper to me at all right now. You look at his body language when he came off against Manchester United. He was angry. He was pissed off. And I just get the feeling that some of the shackles are on these players, and they can't go out and do what they want to do on the pitch. They're being restricted. And when you see Eddie putting the team out like he did against Sunderland just to sit back, that's not getting the best out of those players that were on that pitch. Because we've got some very attacking-minded players. Toon Army and Bruno can unlock doors, but they're not being allowed to for some reason. And you can tell it's affecting their performances. And yes, maybe form is down a little bit, certainly with Toon Army, but he just looks pissed off that he can't do what he wants on the pitch or what he's good at, and he's been restricted. You look at Jacob Ramsey. Now, look, whatever you think of Jacob Ramsey, he, for me, is more of a sort of left centre mid, attacking midfielder kind of player. That's where I've seen him play a lot of times when he's played for Villa. He doesn't play like that with us. I think he's trying to fit Ramsey into a Joe Linton kind of role, and nobody can do that role that Joe Linton does. There's nobody else in the squad capable of doing it when Joe Linton's on his game. But that's the problem. Joe Linton ain't been on his game either. So, you know, you sort of, and I can understand Eddie banging his head against the wall at times saying, well, you know, they're just not performing. But when you set out and see how he set us out against Sunderland, that's a worry. You know, going down to Leeds and playing 5 at the back. I mean, come on. You know, we have been well known under Eddie Howe for being that dynamic, fast, attacking team, you know, who doesn't give you a second on the ball. And I do know that you can't play like that every game. I understand that. But what he's not doing is he's not changing anything when we can't play like that. If we've had a couple of games already in a week, you go to the third game and maybe you think, right, we can't keep that intensity up because of fatigue or whatever it may be. So change that. Don't just put a 4-3-3 out again and park the bus. Because we are terrible when we play like that, as proved against Sunderland. And then we try and, you know, we again, the first half against Man United, not great. But second half, we have a lot of the ball, but we don't unlock anything because he's trying to sort of tell the players, right, sit back 1 minute and attack the other. It doesn't work like that. And that's what we are suffering right now. So tomorrow, Burnley will be expecting a 4-3-3 because you can bet your bottom dollar that every manager in the Premier League knows how Newcastle United play. And that's a big problem. They've worked Eddie Howe out. We all know that as fans. We've said it a million times. Teams take on Newcastle now and know exactly how we're going to play. And if it gets to 10 minutes in the first half and we haven't had a lot of the ball, then teams know what the tactic is that that Newcastle United will be counter-attacking in this game. If we start off fast, we normally go back into a shell 15, 20 minutes in. There's no consistency with what we're doing. And Scott Parker, you bet your bottom dollar he'll have done his homework on Newcastle. He'll have watched us as many times as possible. He'll have seen the performances against Sunderland. He's seen it against Manchester United. He knows the stats on the away form, isn't there? So he will be getting his troops prepared. And listen, I said it on Friday, Burnley will probably put out a stronger team than what Man United did last week because they have players available. They've got strikers. They've got attacking midfielders. And we're all saying going to Burnley, second or bottom, we expect to win this game, but there is a massive flip side to it given the away form, and we don't seem to be performing, and nobody can put the finger on it. Eddie won't answer specific questions that he gets. He thinks that he thinks we've improved every game for the last 7 or 8 games. I cannot agree with that because we are one of the most predictable teams in the Premier League right now to read and know how we're going to play. And once you've been worked out like that, you have to then adjust. Unai Emery did it for Chelsea, for Villa against Chelsea the other night. They were 1-0 down. He knew things needed to change. He couldn't keep it the same or else they were going to lose. He tweaked things. He brought Watkins on, made a few little tweaks, and they went on and won the game. That is a proactive manager, not a reactive one. You know, he knows things aren't going well and it needs a change. Man United, we should have changed it at half-time. Sunderland, we should have made changes at half-time. Players weren't pulling the weight. It was dreadful. And if you're going to be an elite manager, you have to put your foot down with some of these players and say, oh, if you're not doing it, you're hooked. Simple as that. And Anthony Gordon being one of them. So, yeah, It's annoying. It is annoying. Let's get a few more of your super chats in. John says, I think PIF are holding fire while there is still a chance of a trophy. That will be over by the end of January. Well, look, I hope it's not, right? I would love another trip to Wembley. To beat Manchester City over 2 legs in a Carabao Cup semi-final, what a jolt in the arm that would be, by the way. You know, that would be absolutely incredible. And I'm all for that. And then beat Bournemouth in the FA Cup. Let's stay in as many competitions as we possibly can. But I get the feeling that when you listen to Eddie and what he's saying and consistently in press conferences, I just get the feeling he'd rather not be in them all because he keeps complaining he can't get on the training pitch. And that's one of the major reasons for us not playing well this season, which I don't agree with, because other teams are doing it. It doesn't seem to have that, you know, elite mentality that's what you have to do as an elite football team is you in all the competitions, the top European competitions against the very best, you play a lot of games. And he knew what he was going in for this season. He knew it. And then people say, oh, yeah, but he didn't have a director of football. He didn't have this or that. He was after Elanga and Ramsey for 2 years. So it wasn't the fact that he had no director of football there. They're just looking like disastrous choices right now, if we're openly honest. Robert says 3-0 win, nothing less, and a performance by the whole team. And Niall, who's been a member for 30 months, thank you, buddy. We should go all out for Emery or Conte in the summer, even Nagelsmann. Yeah, I mean, look, it's not easy getting an elite manager in the door. It just isn't. And if we're not in the elite competitions, that is going to be a problem as well, just like it is for players. But these are things that we have to sort of look at in the summer. We have to, because if we're not in the Champions League next season, which it doesn't look like it's going to be, there again, like we said last season, there isn't going to be that quality of player that's going to come to the club. We want the elite players, but if you're not in the elite competitions, you know as well as I do that doesn't happen. It just doesn't. So tomorrow night for me has to be the turning point of the season. It has to be. We cannot not do anything else but win tomorrow at Burnley. A draw is not good enough. If you class yourself as a Champions League elite team, then you cannot be picking draws up at Burnley. You cannot lose to a third-string Man United side. You cannot lose to a Sunderland side who's just been promoted. And, to be fair to Sunderland, didn't play very well, but they wanted the game more than us. But I want to see it turn around tomorrow. It has to. We've got the players available. We know we have. The players are available. Take the shackles off them and let them play. You know, Miley at right back, I think, is fine again tomorrow. You know, we know we haven't got the players there. Kraft is still out injured, of course. He's actually linked with a move away in January. Whether that happens or not, I don't know because of the situation with injuries. That's what Eddie said. He's going to look at it. Well, I'm sure he's looking at it now to see who's going to be available in January to who we go out and sign. If we sign anybody. I mean, let's be honest. It's a difficult, very difficult transfer window. But you've got the back four there tomorrow. Cher and Chow are going to play again. Chow wasn't great against Manchester United, but he was still one of the better players on the pitch, and that says something. Cher has to pull his finger out his arse again. Now, whether it's fatigue with Cher because he's playing so many games, I don't know. But again, Friday night at Manchester United, he seemed to have that swagger where he didn't really he wasn't motivated. You know, he was just standing with the ball. He wasn't driving forward. His passing was off. It was just one of those games from Fabian Cher. However, when he's on it, I don't have a problem, but I just don't think those two can play together very well. Obviously, they're both right-sided centre-backs. I don't think they can strike up a partnership, but they have to right now, given the injuries. And that's why these next run of games, we've kind of got away with it a little bit as for opposition that we maybe can beat. But then January, you've got 9 games. I mean, Jesus Christ, we've got a lot of games coming up and we need to get some of the squad back. But midfield for me, do you know what? I mean, Joe Linton Is he fit again? Is he fit enough to play the full game? If he is, I think that he will go with the known three. He'll go with Bruno, Toon Army, and, of course, Joe Linton. If not Joe Linton, then I never thought I'd actually say this, to be fair. I never thought I'd say this, but put Willock in there. Because Willock came on against Man United and looked like he wanted to try and do something, one of the few players. And then there was other players there who weren't performing, and he couldn't get into the game very much when he came on. He wasn't on for very long, of course, but he couldn't get into the game. Jacob Ramsey, for me, is not ready for this magnitude of game. It's a massive game, folks. It's not like, oh, it's just Burnley. This is a massive game for Newcastle United season tomorrow. It's a massive, massive game. And we hopefully that's the message that Eddie will be getting across to the players, just how huge this game is. We know we'll take a big away following again. We know the fans will be giving it their full support. But if things go wrong tomorrow, I do dread to think, because I said it with Billy last night, I don't want things to get nasty for Eddie Howe at all, because I love the bloke. I love Eddie Howe. I love what he's done for the football club. But there comes a time where you look and say, has he hit his peak? Has he hit his limit? Maybe. But he's still the manager. And that's why I don't really want to talk about other managers until it's necessary to talk about. But tomorrow he will be getting the message across just how big this game is. And he'll know in his own head how big this game is. He has to. So he has to put the players out with fire in the bellies to go and absolutely throttle Burnley. Because if we do play the high press and the high energy, I think we win the game easily. But we didn't do it at home, did we? We got 2-0 up, but it still wasn't the best performance in the world we've ever seen. And they struggled to hang on to that lead. And this is what I'm afraid of away from home, that the same is going to happen, that we just cannot get the away form going. But if we can go to Everton and destroy them 4-1, then surely we can go to somewhere like Burnley and do the same. But we said that against Sunderland and Manchester United, of course. Another super chat in from Ian, and he says, I've said it before, Eddie Howe is a great coach, not a great manager. I'm worried where the season is going. And Jeff, thank you, Jeff. If Willock is the answer, we asked the wrong question. Well, yeah, but Jeff, what else is there? Joe Linton hasn't pulled up any trees this season either. And to be fair to, Willock, I know he's took a lot of hammer, but he's looked lively when he's been on the pitch for us this season, more so than other seasons. He's really looks like he's trimmed down and bulked up at the same time, if that makes any sense. And he's looking stronger. And maybe he's overcome that psychological thing about getting injured again, and he's just going for it. But we have to do something. And Joe Linton hasn't, for me, done it this season. There's a chance for him to do it tomorrow. There's a chance for every player on that pitch tomorrow to do it and make a big difference to how Newcastle United season goes. Because if we win tomorrow, get some confidence back, get some morale going, get some goals. You know what it's like. You've watched football long enough to know that we have to go there and win. And what that does inside the dressing room is give you the confidence to then take it to the next game. But consistently getting beat away from home, it just demoralizes you. You're getting back on that team coach and you're thinking, how did we lose that? What is going on? Because Eddie's been asked a million times what is going on and he can't answer us. So he doesn't know. What chances are that the players are going to know? It's upside down right now. Peter says we are 14th in the league. And players who would come in will also be looking at the manager situation, wondering if Howe will still be there. Good point. Derek, thank you very much for your super chat as well. Much appreciated. That is a very good point. You've got players who, will look in the press. They'll see the headlines. They'll be on social media. They'll say, well, hang on a minute. Look at the fan disrest. There's fans completely split about the manager. What is happening with this football club? If we go on a bad run, does the manager stay or go? And the way we are at the minute, we're just stuck in that kind of no man's land where we're not sure how PIF feel about the performances this season or Eddie Howe. There's been a couple of reports saying that PIF are still massively behind the manager. But what I'm seeing after that is because of what he's achieved. And I don't like seeing that because we've we spoke about this a million times, is saying that football does not stand still. So when you're saying that, they've got total confidence in him because of what he's done, not what he's doing. It has to be surely what he's actually doing in the here and now. And, again, I spoke about this in the video earlier on today. You've got players being linked to the club. The big two that have been linked in recent days is Keith Smith and Daryl Bacola. Both kids. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but do we not need to get players in now for the here and now? And I know that these kids are apparent wonder kids and probably could get into the first team. But what I'm saying is we need players for the here and now, not for the future. Surely the players for the future would be summer signings, etc. Now, Keith Smith and Daryl Bacola, they are both wanted by the big boys across Europe. So for me, there is absolutely no chance of Newcastle United signing them. The video I did on Keith Smith yesterday talking about how Newcastle United, they wanted a cut price deal for Keith Smith. And I'm sorry, I am sick of hearing cut price deal when it comes to Newcastle United. You're playing with the big boys, you've got to pay the big boy money. Or else you're not going to get the players if you want to go in for cut price deals all the time. It's pointless. It is absolutely pointless going against the Dortmunds, the Madrids, the Munichs, the Barcelonas. Even the Premier League big boys. You're not going to get anybody. And trying to go, teams like Alkmaar, who Keith Smith plays for, know they are sitting on a gold mine, right? An absolute gold mine. So Newcastle come along and say, we'll offer you £42.5 million for him. They rejected a £60 million. I think it was Madrid came in and, didn't offer it, but they were negotiating at 60 million and Alkmaar still said no because they know when the summer comes, there'll be a huge auction for him and they can get as much as they want for him. So they're not going to turn around to Newcastle and say, yeah, we'll take 42.5. No chance. And the same with Bacola. They'll do the same with him. Marseille aren't stupid. If they do have to sell him or the player does want to move on, they know they're sitting on a gold mine. And Newcastle can't get those kind of players. And again, it's frustrating because we could if we were challenging at the top of the league because we'd be appealing to these players, but we're not an appealing side right now. I like coffee. He says, hopefully the owners and the board can see something is off with these performances. A visit from Yassir could re-anchor the project to its original vision. Interesting. I mean, where is the chairman? We haven't heard from the chairman in a long, long time, by the way. Has anybody seen him at recent games? I don't know. LEDC says, Eddie just looks jaded, tired and empty and it rubs off. That's an excellent point. Because I get that feeling about Eddie as well. And look, you have to worry about Eddie or anybody in football management. You have to worry about their health because it does take a big impact on your health. And, everybody worried when Eddie had pneumonia. It was a horrible illness that he had. He's come back, refreshed, ready to go again. But now it just seems like it's dragging him down because he doesn't seem to have the answers himself. And that could be the biggest problem is the fact that he's going home and he's sort of sitting down thinking, what can I do? I'm completely out of options. And sometimes when that starts happening, that is when you need a managerial change. You need to get somebody else in who can take us up to the next level. Eddie will always be a legend for me. He'll always be the man that won us a cup after decades and what he's done for us since the takeover. Bringing this club from the absolute ashes into the flames again. It's absolutely fantastic. But I don't want it to get nasty on him either. Nathan Ake, available for 21 million, experience, can play left centre-back and left-back. Not a bad shout. Not a bad shout. I've been seeing Oscar Bob as well, that Manchester City may be letting Oscar Bob go. He's terrorised us in the past for such a young kid. Maybe not a bad option. He's got plenty of experience as well. Eskimo Boy says, give Eddie Howe until the end of the season. If he fails, sack him. Now, listen, there's 2 points to that. There's 2 points to sacking him at the end of the season. Because if we do wait till the end of the season, if this is all hypothetical, of course, but if form doesn't pick up, then we're going to be mid-table. Listen, relegation isn't going to happen. That's not in question. But what I'm saying is lower half of the Premier League. and then we wait until the summer to sack him, a new manager's going to look at us and say, right, no Europe next season. We can't attract the big players. It's difficult. I'm not saying that no manager would want to take it on, because to come to Newcastle for me would be an honour. Would be an absolute honour to manage Newcastle United. But we have to be heading in the right direction. And if we set out a process that seems to take one step forward, the next season a step back, then a step forward, then a step back, we're just staying in the neutral zone. We're not going anywhere. So it's difficult negotiations are ahead, without a shadow of a doubt. Geordie Rossi says, 10 years to the day since Pavel Cernacek passed away. Yeah, 10 years. It's absolutely flown by. Absolute legend, Pavel Cernacek, isn't he? I mean, come on. Pavel is a Geordie, and it always will be a Geordie. I loved watching Pav. You know, I've seen some goalkeepers in my time at Newcastle United, you know, going back to the days of Kevin Carr, etc., Mike Hooper. Oh, my God. So, yeah, Pav was a legend, no doubt about it. I wouldn't say Pav was the greatest goalkeeper in the world, but my God, he bled black and white. And that's all that counted for me. He was incredible, and a lovely guy to go with it. Peter says, if Eddie Howe goes, would you have Jose short term? I'm sick of hearing his name, if I'm openly honest, Peter. I don't see the appeal in Jose right now. Maybe he steadies the ship, right? And maybe the football that he plays isn't the prettiest. But one thing Jose's always been known for is getting results. But I don't think he's the man. I think he's probably now beyond where we want him to be. You know, a younger kind of Jose Mourinho, a hungrier Jose, then maybe. But now, you know, he's living his life back in Portugal now, and I don't see him coming back to the Premier League, if I'm openly honest. Kevin says, Eddie doesn't play new signings for 6 weeks. We need new signings for now. Perfect. I couldn't agree with you more, Kev, to be honest. We need those players. But then again, didn't Elanga and Ramsey come in as players like that were ready to go? And they've been here 6 months and they're still as stale as a gone-off cheese. So, yeah, it's tough for Eddie. It is tough for Eddie. And it's going to be tough tomorrow night. It really is going to be tough, because Burnley will be up for this game. They will know Newcastle United's form is poor away from home. They will be 100% up for it. And whatever team Scott Parker decides to put out, he will put a team out that can be combative against the 4-3-3. Because right now, nobody knows if Eddie Howe can change it or not, or whether he's willing to, or whether he just sticks by the 4-3-3, once again goes like for like with his substitutions. I think that has to change as well. I think he cannot keep making the same substitutions without tinkering the formation. It doesn't work. I mean, if you're a team like Burnley and say you're 1-0 up, just like Manchester United were last week, right? And you see the subs coming on, and he's just going like for like. It doesn't confuse anybody. It doesn't put doubt in defenders or managers' heads. But if you suddenly make substitutions with 20 minutes to go, and you change from the 4-3-3 to a 4-2-3-1, a 4-4-2, whatever it may be, that puts doubt in the opposition's head, because they've got to try and adjust to that. And it gives you an opportunity to pinch a goal or two and come out actually winning the game. Look, I'm not saying that throwing Wisser and Voldemar on against Man United would have changed our fortunes, but it certainly would have given us a better opportunity to put the bloody ball in the back of the net. And nobody seems to realise that on the coaching staff at Newcastle. They just go like for like. Every single substitution that we see is at the same time in the game, and it's the same like for like changes. He takes a left winger off, he puts a new left winger on, he takes a striker off, he puts another striker on. He won't do anything different. And I think he should have took Murphy off earlier on Friday night, put Harvey Barnes on the right, and let Gordon and Barnes have a go. And maybe switch them over, switch wings every now and again. Put a little bit of doubt in your opposition's heads. Make their manager think, oh, what do I do now? They've gone 4-4-2. I wasn't expecting that. Maybe I should change this or change that. And if they change something, it might just rock the boat with them to the point where it upsets the way they play and we can go and score. But changing like for like, I think, is just very, very, very comfortable for the opposition's team and their manager. They don't have to do anything different. as we saw on Friday against Man United. They just kept the low block and said, right, you change it like for like. It doesn't change the way this game's going. And it's frustrating as hell, guys. It really is. And, we know what Burnley are going to be like tomorrow. They like pumping balls into the box. We've got to be aware of it. We've got to defend a lot better than we've been doing. Because sometimes when we play these teams that like to pump the ball long, it creates havoc in our 18-yard box. Now, Nick Pope might play tomorrow. In fact, I think Nick Pope will come back tomorrow. I don't think there's anybody doubting that. Apparently, he was ill before the Man United game, even though he was still on the bench. But Eddie said it was a good job that he wasn't in the starting lineup because he was ill. But he should be fully fit for tomorrow. Now, I think he makes the change tomorrow, not just because Burnley's Nick Pope's ex-team, of course, but because I think it's needed. We all needed to see Ramsdale come in and have a few games and see if he was the answer. Unfortunately, I don't think he is. But the problem we got is we've got two different style of goalkeepers. One brilliant shot stopper, one brilliant with his feet. But we can't combine the two. We need to go out and find a goalkeeper who's got all them attributes to bring to the side. But Nick Pope, for me, I think is Eddie's number one. I think we all know that. And I think we see Nick Pope back in action tomorrow. What that does for the state of the back four, I don't know. Because remember, Nick Pope wasn't brilliant before he got injured. He was making lots of mistakes. Coming out of his penalty area into no man's land. His punching was dreadful. Every cross that came in the box, we were worried about what was going to happen. And it'll be the same tomorrow because Burnley will do that. They like to pump the ball long. They like to put it in the area. They like to challenge. They like the rough stuff. And they're fighting for their lives, guys. We have to remember that as well. They're fighting at the bottom of the league. They want to stay in the Premier League. They don't want to be a yo-yo team of getting a promotion then a relegation and keep doing what was it West Brom used to do a few years ago, or Norwich City when they kept getting promoted, relegated, etc. They want to run in the Premier League, so they've got a lot to fight for. But the thing is, so have we. We've got an awful lot to fight for, and if I don't see that fight from the players tomorrow, I'm going to be very annoyed because that will tell me that I think, there's already been speculation, hasn't there, about whether everybody's behind Eddie Howe or whether there's disruption in the dressing room. But I think tomorrow will tell us a big story. Because if tomorrow the players go out with no fight and desire, then that tells me he's lost the dressing room, completely lost the dressing room. And once you've lost the dressing room, there's no getting it back. Everybody knows that. So it'll be very interesting to see what the players' body language is like. If they lose a tackle or they, God forbid we concede an early goal. It's going to be very interesting to see what the players' body languages are like. Who is up for the fight? Who is up for dragging Newcastle United back to where we belong? And who isn't? Because if you can't get that out the players, then that tells me that a change is needed. But of course, we won't know that until they get out on the pitch tomorrow. Peter says, do you think Eddie is playing for the sack? No, I don't, Peter. Of course not. Eddie is not one of those guys that would just think, I'm just playing for the sack here. I'll get me compensation. Eddie's not that type of guy. And I would never put that on him. Eddie will be fighting as hard as he possibly can. Despite all the criticism we give him and all that kind of stuff, we know that he will be fighting hard to put this right. He will be hurting just as much as us when he sees some of the performances this season. But the question is he capable of getting us out of it? Has he got the ideas? Has he got the nous to do it? That's the question that we're all asking. And there's nothing more than I would love to see than Eddie get us out of this shit and playing brilliant football, winning more games than we're losing or drawing and moving up that table. There's nothing more I would want. But you have to question whether a manager has hit his individual limits and whether there's any more ideas in the tank. And certainly he's not showing that at the minute with the decisions he's making during the game. 5 different competitions. Let's focus only on the Premier League and Champions League because that's where we get the money and prestige. The squad is too small. I'm not sure about that because, we know silverware and winning competitions does bring, maybe not in the Carabao Cup. Obviously, the financial gains in the Carabao Cup aren't there. But the fact is, it's a trophy. It's silverware. And we've been begging for that kind of thing for a long time now. So I think silverware is something that we really want. We've had a taste of it and we want more. The FA Cup, for me, is still prestigious. I remember growing up watching the FA Cup, so that will always be a prestigious tournament for me. Whether it is for the younger fans today, I don't know. They didn't know what it was like for FA Cup final day. You know, when it started at 8 o'clock in the morning and you used to watch it all the way through. The cameras were on the bus, in the dressing rooms. You watched it from literally 8 o'clock in the morning right through to the final whistle and the lifting of the trophy. It was a special day. Is it like that now? No, but that's probably because of the way TV and etc. That type of thing's gone. But to be in these competitions still means a lot to me as a fan. I understand what you mean, because that's where the revenue is. There's no doubt about that. The revenue is in the Premier League and Champions League, but you've got the different honours to go for. Maybe I do get the feeling that there is too many competitions for us with the squad size. But like I said earlier, they knew what they were getting into this season. They knew how many games they would be playing. You sign more players. You get that squad ready. And yes, there was a lot of commotion in the summer. I'm not going to deny that with Isak's situation and all that stuff. But surely there is enough people at that football club to have got more done. You know, apparently there was just 3 people involved in the transfers. You can't tell me that there wasn't more people at that club capable of helping out. That's just me as a fan saying that, by the way. I don't know anything about what went on. It just seems like the reporting was that it was Eddie Howe and his family member, and it doesn't work. Stephen says, buy Mackham's keeper. He's the next big thing. Yeah. Listen, Royce is a good goalkeeper. There's no doubt about that. But he's made plenty of mistakes since he's been at Sunderland. Let's not beat around the bush there. He's made a lot of mistakes for Sunderland. Yes, he's young, but he's a goalkeeper that I think Sunderland want to keep for many years anyway. Kevin says, I never watch Eddie's press conferences. He's as clear as a pool of mud. Yeah. Yeah, but, there's many different things you can argue with when it comes to that. Is he getting asked the right questions? And like I said at the start of the show, I think the only people that ask the real questions for me in there right now are the Geordie journals. Those two, and then obviously they do the video afterwards and they say, look, we've asked, Eddie's batting them out. He's just batting them straight back to us because he doesn't want to answer them. I think it's very important that they keep on at him and keep on trying to get the answers. But the press conferences, I mean, I used to... I know I still do the press conference reactions, but I used to really look forward to hearing from the manager about what's happening with the team. Give us a little bit of an insight into what's going on at the football club, what's going on in training, etc. Obviously not give anything away regarding tactics or that kind of stuff, but at least give us an idea of what's going on. And right now, you're right. It's a pool of mud. You don't get any normal answers off the manager anymore, even in the post-match press conferences. He'll turn around and say, we put the effort in today. Well, he said that after the Sunderland game. There was no effort for me in that game. It was dire. And I think he made a bit of a fool of himself when he said something like that because it was really, really rotten. So the questions have to be better. But like I said, the only ones I pay attention to asking questions now are the Geordie Journal lads. I think they're fantastic. Nick's pick says we're crying out for a striker up front in January. I don't think they're going to go for a striker I don't think they're going to go for a striker who's going to be first on the team sheet, put it that way. I think that they will possibly look to replace Will Asula, who, if you believe what you've read, is going to the Bundesliga. That's all done and dusted, and they're just waiting for the window to open. So we do need a replacement there, but we do have Sean Neve coming through, but we know Eddie doesn't tend to give the kids a lot of opportunities. Again, he talked about young Alabi. And he said about him that he's doing really well in training, and then mentioned the other guys like Neve and Shahar, and that they're doing really well in training. They've got brilliant attitudes. The usual spiel, nothing about them coming on the pitch. So I don't think that's going to change anytime soon, guys, with regards to the kids. But I think they will get a Will Asula replacement, but he's not going to be the sort of superstar striker. We've got Wisser and Voldemar there. Peter says, do you think PIF have an eye on Glasner's situation? You never know. You never know. I don't know, Peter, obviously. I mean, do I think that they'll be sort of having a side eye maybe on what's going on with other managers? Possibly. What club doesn't? Just in case things go wrong or things need to change, I'm sure that the majority of football clubs always keep an eye on what's going on in the managerial market. But if you believe what you say, Eddie is the number one guy for Newcastle, and they're not going to make a change. Slipper says Eddie needs to bow out gracefully. He looks like a man on the edge of a breakdown. Go out on a high. Well, he's on that high now, isn't he? Winning the Carabao Cup, and I think that's a big thing for me. I think the fact that he's won the Carabao Cup, he's still riding that wave. We all are, to be fair. But at the minute, since the cup final, things have just we're coming down the side of the mountain too fast. We were at the pinnacle of that mountain, winning it, and now we're sliding away into the clouds, and we're leaving the rest of them in the Premier League. We're just regressing, going backwards, and I hate saying that. I really do, because we know we've got the players. Those players don't suddenly turn into a mid-table team in a few months. It just doesn't happen. Something's not right, clearly. Keith says, love the show, Paul. If players aren't playing well, why is the manager not playing to their strengths? And why, like Voldemort, for instance? Keith, I honestly don't know, buddy. I'd love to say that, we have an answer for that, but I don't know. Link says, is this Eddie Howe's show? Thought it was a preview for tomorrow. It is a preview for tomorrow. We spoke about tomorrow's game all through the hour. But Eddie Howe is a big part of that because of the situation that we're in. That's why we talk about Eddie Howe so much, because he's playing against Burnley tomorrow, and we're talking about what team he's going to put out. Are they going to be energized? I mean, come on. It's not. We spoke about Burnley many times in this show tonight about how we're going to set up and how we have to play and what we're going to do. But it's all down to Eddie Howe himself. He puts the team out. But I think the team tomorrow, I mean, if you're talking to the front three again, he's kind of dismissing Wissa starting games now. And I covered that in the video this afternoon. He's sort of turning it away from Wissa starting, saying he's not fit enough to go through a whole game. So, listen, if Wissa starts tomorrow, I have a good feeling, right? I have a good feeling we might get something out of the game. But we have to give him the ammunition. We have to give him the ammunition. So who would I want to play alongside Wissa in the front three? I'd give Gordon a go on the left and Barnes on the right, and then change them around every so often. Just keep the opposition puzzled as to who's going where. If Gordon goes to the right, Barnes to the left, just try and create something a little bit different. And look, I say that because it's going to be a 4-3-3 tomorrow. I don't think anybody is expecting a big change than the 4-3-3 that we know Newcastle United play. That may well be our downfall tomorrow. It may not. We may go out and absolutely hammer Burnley and be on it from the start, and I really damn well hope we are. So I want to see that tomorrow. I want to see us go at it from the very, very first whistle. The very first whistle, go at it, give them hell, and create opportunities for Wissa. If it's Voldemort, then create opportunities for him. Play to Voldemort's strengths. And I would have thought that, the management team, the coaches would have looked at the way Germany set up for Voldemort and try playing that way. Just do something different. That's what I want to see tomorrow. Anyway, let me know your predictions in the chat, guys. What do you think the score is going to be tomorrow? Given the team that we will probably put out, I think we all know who will start the game. Let me know what you think the score is going to be. Are you confident for tomorrow for a start? And don't forget, we do have the full game live commentary tomorrow on Matchday Live. Me and Billy will start at 7 p.m. tomorrow night. It's a 7:30 kickoff. So 7 p.m. Join us for that. Knock the sound off on the commentary if you're watching it on TV. Listen to me and Billy, the best way to do it. And hopefully we get 3 bloody points tomorrow. Cayley's going 1-1. Lynx Rainbird 2-0. Good. That's a win. Lempton 2-2. Tom 2-1. Bruni 1-1. Paul's going with a 3-0. LG says 1-0 Burnley. Bloody hell. John's going 2-1 Burnley. 3-1 Burnley. Oh dear. See, there's when I'm looking at these scores coming through in the chat, guys, to be honest, it's a little bit worrying because, again, the confidence just isn't there of winning this game. Now, you know, given seasons gone by, us going to Burnley, everybody would be putting 3-0, 4-0 to Newcastle. How times have changed. My goodness, how times have changed. And not for the better. But listen, let's just hope they do it, eh? Let's just hope they do it. But that is it for the show tonight, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you for all the support. Been on my Todd for an hour. And thank you for all your super chats, etc., and taking part in the show. I really do appreciate that. Mods, thank you very much. As I say, we're back tomorrow. 7 o'clock is the next live, which is the Matchday Live show with me and Billy. If there's any news tomorrow, of course, I'll be doing a video, so keep your notifications on for that. But as I say, if you have enjoyed the show tonight, please give it a like, guys. And, of course, subscribe to the Toon Review YouTube channel, and we will see you all again tomorrow. In the meantime, good night.
Come back and check out the breeze.